Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the MCU Perspectives What If Edition. And today we're going to be discussing episode 12 of Marvel's What If. What if Happy Hogan saved Christmas? And yeah, if you can't tell by the title of this episode, this is What If's requisite Christmas episode. And it's here I kind of have to remind you that when season 2 of What If was released on Disney Plus, rather than doing it week by week like they did with season 1, they released it day by day. And well, this episode came out on December 24th, which means that, yeah, I am kind of a few weeks behind. Or, am I 12 months early? Food for thought. But, yeah, this episode is kind of a silly one if the title is anything to go by. But, with that said, is it an enjoyable kind of silly or the dumb kind of silly? Well, let's take a look at it and find out. So, like with all what ifs, I should probably talk about the central focus of this episode. Well, as the title of the episode implies, this main character this time is Happy Hogan. Now, if you're a fan of the MCU, you most likely know who Happy Hogan is. He's a supporting character in the Iron Man movies, and his job was typically head of Tony's security, and was essentially like his Guy Friday, so to speak, after Pepper Potts kind of stepped up and became Tony's love interest. Point is, he was kind of one of Tony's best friends, and would typically be there to offer support, even though he was kind of sort of treated as a comic relief. He appeared in various other MCU projects, and after Tony's death in Avengers Endgame, he wound up shifting his focus to supporting Spider-Man, and even wound up getting into a relationship with Peter's aunt. However, what if between the events of the first Avengers movie and Avengers Age of Ultron, Happy had to prove himself as the hero of the story? Well, that's where this episode comes into play. If you can't tell by the title of the episode, this episode takes place around Christmas at Avengers Tower. Happy Hogan and hold on one second. Apologies, I was blanking on a name. But yeah, like I said, Happy Hogan is in charge of security, Maria Hill is offering support, and Darcy has somehow become an intern at Avengers Tower. Why? Fuck if I know. She's just there, so to speak, and she's basically happy to keep her occupied as doing various odd jobs. In the meantime, the actual Avengers themselves are kind of off doing their own thing. The Black Widow is duking it out with a former Hydra agent over in the catwalk above a production of the Nutcracker. Tony and Cap they're at a mall, pretty much playing Santa and his elf, with Cap being stormed by soccer moms. It's hilarious. And in the meantime, Hawkeye and Bruce Banner are at a toy shop arguing over the last Iron Man action figure. It's, again, just a basic Christmas hullabaloo. However, as you do, things kind of start going wrong. While Happy sends Darcy out on a fool's errand outside of the tower, well, that's when the bad guys of the episode pop in. Specifically, Justin Hammer and 2 Russian terrorists. Yeah, you remember Justin Hammer? He was one of the bad guys in Iron Man 2, the corporate scumbag who wanted to copy the Iron Man technology and mass produce it. Even hired Whiplash to create him his own army of Iron Man copies that the Whiplash eventually turned into drones that he controlled and essentially ruined the Stark Expo, which led to not only Whiplash being killed in battle, but Justin Hammer being arrested. Well, that same thing happened in this reality as well. Except Justin Hammer kind of had time to contemplate his failure and decided, hell, if he's going to succeed in anything, he's just going to keep cheating. And so either by waiting out his prison sentence or by breaking out, I don't know, he's now gotten out of prison and he's now launching a direct attack on on Avengers Tower with his 2 hired guns essentially coming in and, keeping everyone in line as, hey, it is still a Christmas party that's being set up, and well, these are innocent bystanders. So, basically, once they reach the actual floor where the party's being held, the Russian terrorists hold everyone at gunpoint while Justin Hammer takes out a tablet and begins hacking into Stark's security system. And sure enough, he ends up taking control of the entire building, pretty much, which not only allows him control of all security, pretty much shutting everyone in, but he's also gained control of security drones that Tony kind of has all around the place. Essentially meaning that everyone inside the building is kind of shit out of luck. However, Happy and Maria Hill are quickly made aware of what's going on, and well, as Happy begins kind of snooping around Avengers Tower, he does eventually find Justin Hammer and the two Russian terrorists as they end up going to a vault that's within the tower. And inside the vault are basically meant to be all these various weapons that Tony has stored away that he kind of keeps for basically in case of a rainy day, so to speak. They don't use that kind of language, but that's kind of the case. And Hammer's target is one of those weapons, specifically a vial of the Hulk's blood. Basically, Tony has been keeping that stuff on standby, and he's been attempting to experiment on it. Think of it like trying to create a Hulk without the anger issues, in Happy's own words. And essentially, Justin wants to take that vial of Hulk's blood and inject it into himself, so that he'll not only be the smartest guy in the world, but also the strongest too. He'll be able to take on the Avengers and all that crap. But put simply, basically Happy realizes that that's not a bad idea, and so he and Maria end up coordinating through walkie-talkies, pretty much deciding they need to figure out how to take Hammer down before he gets the Hulk's blood. Unfortunately, that task is easier said than done, as while Happy is aware of the intricacies of Avengers Tower enough to, sneak around and get away from Hammer, well, eventually Hammer still has control of the security team. And so while Hammer leaves his two hired guns to try and break into the vault, which I mean, they literally try to break in, they even have sledgehammers to try and pound against the glass, Justin decides to go off and take a shit in Tony's toilet. He doesn't use those words, but that is what he's doing. And on his way, he gets intercepted by Maria Hill, who attempts to hold him at gunpoint, but Hammer ends up distracting her long enough for him to call in the cavalry in the form of various security drones, which end up breaking her leg and incapacitating her. As such, Happy quickly realizes he's on his own, and thankfully he does manage to find his way into the vault himself by using the air vents. And unfortunately, though, this is around the time when Maria Hill met with Justin Hammer, and unfortunately, as Happy was trying to sneak in, he was making quite a bit of ruckus. Now, the interior of the vault is all black, and the exterior is completely covered in glass. So, thankfully, Happy is able to hide in the dark enough so that Hammer's hired guns don't see him. But eventually, when Happy ends up crashing right into the vault, he accidentally turns on the lights, and sure enough, the two Russian mobsters end up seeing him, and, well, they immediately kind of put on double time as they start trying to rush in. Ultimately, though, Happy has to get back on business as he continues running throughout the vault trying to find the vial of Hulk's blood. And eventually, he does find it in the form of a little syringe, with it being all green and such, because, it's the Hulk. But unfortunately, that's when Justin Hammer and his two goons end up coming in, and they end up causing such a ruckus that Happy ends up fumbling with the vial and accidentally injects himself in the leg. And as a result, he starts slowly turning into a Hulk, or as the end credits call him, the Freak. Basically, it's clear that whatever experiments that Tony has done on the Hulk's blood, they are at least somewhat successful, as the transformation is a little bit gradual, and even when it fully takes hold, Happy is still mostly in control of his faculties. But at the same time, it's a slow transformation. In fact, the first thing that transforms with Happy is his leg, which turns all big and muscly, and also purple. Again, I guess that's why they call him the Freak. Whatever. Point is, Happy now has the Hulk's blood running through his veins, and while Hammer does eventually arrive back on the scene and he and his two hired goons eventually get into the vault, they quickly realize that Happy has the Hulk's blood, and so he becomes a higher priority target. Thankfully, Happy is able to get away from them and manages to hide in other areas of the tower, but unfortunately, that's when Justin Hammer sends more of the security drones after Happy. He's thankfully able to duck and cover inside of a locker, but he quickly realizes that he's kind of outmanned here, especially since the only part of him that's hulked out is his leg. He tries calling the Avengers, but unfortunately they're all being held up with the aforementioned distractions, and so he feels he's shit out of luck. However, there is one out, as he realizes there is one part of a security team that's outside of the tower. And that person is Darcy. As such, Happy is able to get in contact with Darcy, and he's able to let her know that what's going on in the tower. But it's at this point when he starts hulking out more, as his arms and his other leg end up transforming as well. So it's starting to have an effect on more than just those parts of his body, as his voice is starting to get deeper and more gravelly, kind of more befitting of a Hulk, so to speak. But either way, as he's talking with Darcy and things are going wrong, that's when one of the security drones finds him and he has to escape, and eventually he does manage to make his way And eventually, he does manage to escape the drone by utilizing a thing of wrapping paper that was stuck to the wall to fly out the window and eventually come crashing in through into the window of another level in the tower. Sadly, the adrenaline does allow the Hulk blood to more course through Happy's veins, and he does do a full-on transformation into the Freak, which he's able to enjoy the transformation, though he quickly realizes he's got to keep his temper in check. In the meantime, he's still in contact with Darcy, and as they're trying to figure out a way to take Hammer down, they end up coming up with a plan. You see, the reason why Hammer was able to do this whole takeover in the first place was because, well, Jarvis was offline, so he wasn't in charge of the building's security. However, if someone can get into the basement of Avengers Tower and reboot Jarvis from the get-go, then he might be able to purge the system of Hammer's influence and essentially just get him and his goons out of there. But the thing is, they can't just go right all the way down there and activate it without a problem. So as such, Happy kind of has to act as a distraction, keeping Hammer and his goons on their toes while Darcy sneaks in. And that's essentially what happens. As Happy continues making his way throughout Avengers Tower, duking it out with more of the security drones, just kind of having a ball, but eventually Darcy does manage to get back to Avengers Tower and makes her way to the basement, wherein she does end up finding like literal rows upon rows of backup programs like Jarvis before grabbing one. Although in this case it's not Jarvis, it's another program called Werner. Don't know why Tony even has it, because when it's booted up, apparently it's very pessimistic. But point is, Darcy has it, but unfortunately it's at this point in time when things kind of go haywire, as while Happy is happily just, wrecking through more drones, he ends up getting a call from Darcy. Lets him know that she's gotten the program, but that's when she's intercepted by more of Hammer's goons, and Hammer ends up calling Happy back on his walkie-talkie, because after all, Hammer needs the Hulk's blood, and the Hulk's blood's in Happy's body, so basically, like I said, Hammer needs Happy. So he pretty much just tells him, come to the penthouse, and basically I'll trade you Darcy for your blood, and if you don't come, I'll shoot a bullet through her head. As such, Happy is very much pissed off and tells him that he'll take the elevator up. To pass the time, basically Hammer starts opening presents, he starts mocking everyone, but eventually the elevator arrives, and when he orders his goons to open fire on it, well, it's just a dummy. Yeah, it's just literally a dummy. Although there is a trick arrow inside it, which apparently shoots confetti, which is kind of awesome. But either way, this distracts Hammer and his goons long enough that Happy is able to ends up jumping right in through the window and just starts kind of wrecking the place as more security drones come to try and take him down. As such, Hammer's other goons quickly see that, holy shit, this guy's a Hulk, and decide, fuck this noise, it's not worth what he's paying us, and they take the elevator out. As such, Hammer's kind of left high and dry. However, he does quickly find a benefit as he looks through the schematics for Avengers Tower and finds that there is a backup system, that there is actually something he could use, in the armory. As such, he runs down there, and after Happy takes care of all the security drones, he frees Maria Hill and Darcy from their bonds as he tells them to go down to the basement and boot up the program that Darcy got. In the meantime, Happy goes after Hammer, but when he reaches him in the armory, well, it turns out Hammer's already made a call to someone call to something to help him out, and well, considering that he's duking it out with a Hulk, there's only one bit of Tony's technology that might be able to be a match. Yep. Hammer called the Hulkbuster, which comes crashing into the window and essentially decks Hammer out as he now can fight Happy on a more even keel. As such, the pair of them end up having their own battle in Avengers Tower, which again, it's awesome. But eventually, Darcy and Maria are able to load up the Werner program into Avengers Tower. But again, like I said, very pessimistic, and Werner is just being as difficult as possible and ignoring any and all commands, which prompts Maria and Darcy to wonder, who the hell would program this thing like this? Or Tony would. But in the meantime, while Hammer and Happy are kind of unevenly matched, Happy does start to get an advantage in his battle, and he actually starts overpowering the Hulkbuster armor and just starting to rip it apart, even starting to just kind of eat chunks of it in the adrenaline rush. Unfortunately, it's at this point when the Avengers come home, and from their perspective, they are seeing a big purple guy duke it out with one of Tony's suits. So, yeah, they start thinking that Happy is the bad guy here, and so they all rush into battle Happy. Sans Bruce, who just decides to sit on the sidelines and just kind of give encouragement. That's kind of funny, and I love that. But ultimately, the Avengers start duking it out with Happy, and while they do start overwhelming him a bit, eventually Darcy is able to come in before they can take him out, as she reveals that this is actually Happy, and once the Avengers realize, it's like, oh shit, sorry dude, and they kind of give him enough breath to speak, and Happy lets them know that Hammer took over the tower and is the one wearing the suit. So yeah, the Avengers see Hammer in what's left of the Hulkbuster armor, and Tony just kind of looks at him, and he just hits a button and the armor falls off. As such, Hammer's just kind of left high and dry, so Happy lets out a roar. It causes him to stumble and almost fall out a window, but Happy comes in and saves his life because, hey, it's Christmas and and that's what superheroes do. So, yeah. The day is saved. Hammer's defeated. The Avengers Tower is left in one piece, and Happy is left wondering, "Hey, Tony, you got a cure for all this?" And Tony just avoids the question entirely, as they decide to go in and basically, kind of try and make the best of what they can for this Christmas. And so, as they go in with the Watcher giving a hearty narration with a hearty narration, we see the Bifrost activate as Thor arrives in a Santa hat, and as he sees that everyone's walking away, he's like, oh, did I miss the party? And the episode ends with the Watcher wishing everyone a Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. So, yeah, that was What If Happy Hogan Saved Christmas? It's stupid, but it's a good stupid. It's very much one of those... Let me put it this way. Remember last season with the What If Thor Was an Only Child episode, and how that spawned Party Thor, and just how ridiculously stupid and fun that episode was because of it? I think this is kind of like that, but on a lesser scale. And you can tell that, and you can just kind of get that sense right just from the title of the episode, because it's a silly premise. It's Happy Hogan essentially going through Die Hard, but in the MCU. And they don't hide the fact that this is essentially just Die Hard with superheroes, because they even reference it in the episode. When Happy wound up calling Darcy about what was going on with how Avengers Tower was taken over by terrorists, even she was like, this is like that one movie, and she never gets the name right, but they name drop a couple of characters in that, like John McClane and some other character. Again, don't actually know it, I've never seen Die Hard, and I have no interest in seeing it, but my point is this, the episode is just essentially just Die Hard, but set in the Marvel universe, and it's just silly and stupid. It's fun. It's silly. It's just silly and stupid, but it's the enjoyable kind of stupid. The episode never takes the premise too seriously, and it just kind of has fun with it from beginning to end. It doesn't like push the envelope and go all over the top in a few areas, but it clearly is just meant to be some silly, goofy fun. You can just kind of kick back and enjoy. You're not supposed to take a lot of this episode seriously. This isn't like a big battle that we're supposed to be invested in. This is just supposed to be a dumbass supervillain, or not even a supervillain, just a dumbass villain from one of the early movies, and not one of the early movies, who, even in his own film, was not that great of a villain, just coming in, trying to be the big, bad, evil guy, who wants to get ultimate power, but is kind of being stopped at every step of the way by the hired help, and it's glorious. It's just silly and dumb. And every point of the episode just highlights this. From Happy Hogan stumbling through Avengers Tower as he tries to outmaneuver him. From his troubles as he transforms into the Freak little by little. To when he eventually does transform into the Freak and just starts having a ball. They could even tell by his appearance that they just essentially just looked at this and thought, we're just gonna go nuts with this. As when he hulks out and he turns into the Freak, it looks off, so to speak, and I can't really find a way to sugarcoat that. He looks off. Basically, it's like they just said, let's make an off-brand Hulk, and that's exactly what we got. As he has the body type of the Hulk, as he looks stronger, as he looks strong, he has the inflections right, but his face looks like he has one eye that's squinted, one eye bulging out, and he's always like talking like this. that's how his face looks, and basically throughout across his body are like little veins across him, which looks creepy. What makes it funnier though is that Happy can just switch between his happy-go-lucky personality to this angry Hulk personality when the mood suits him, because, well, he's still in full control, and just at times he's got to let his rage get the best of him in order to just go through just to get through all of Stark's tower's defenses. Again, it's just dumb. It's dumb, but it's a very enjoyable kind of dumb. And again, it showcases that throughout the rest of the, and it just showcases that in various ways, from what the Avengers are doing and why they're not intervening in this, as they have their own things, as they have their own Christmas ordeals to deal with. I love that essentially Tony and Cap were just stuck in a mall playing Santa, and I loved it when Happy called them. Immediately Tony's like, "Hey Happy, can you tell this kid that's on my lap that getting a Captain America shield is like getting a glorified Frisbee?" And before Happy can let him know what's going on, he's like, "Hold on, Happy, I gotta let you go. The soccer moms are closing in on Cap." We see just Cap in the middle of a crowd of women who are just trying to gang up on him, and Tony's like, "Oh shit, gotta help him." I love that. It's amazing. It's just hilarious. And then to cut to a toy store as we see Hawkeye and Bruce just standing among a bunch of kids, and one side of the aisle is just where the Iron Man action figures are, and Hawkeye has the last one, and on the other side is Captain America ones, and not a single one is sold. Again, it just looks so silly and stupid. And as we see Hawkeye and Bruce arguing over the toy, it starts pushing it. And I dig it. It's just silly and dumb. And it's just silly and dumb, and it has a ball with it, complete with the ending, complete with how the episode begins, because this episode is kind of sort of told in media res, as it begins with the Avengers duking it out with the Freak in Avengers Tower, and the Watcher's like, okay, we might need to rewind a bit and get some context for this. So again, it's just weird and dumb. And again, if you want a bigger example for why you're not supposed to take this episode too seriously, look no further than the villain, because again, this is Justin Hammer, probably one of the dumber villains in the MCU, and because really, there's nothing to him. Whiplash was a more interesting villain, and his biggest flaw was that you didn't get enough of him. But Justin Hammer, he was annoying in Iron Man 2. He was just a corporate stooge who acted like he knew more than he did, and ultimately he just kind of looked like an idiot in every sense of the word. And as a result, he only was really a villain because he did underhanded things, and he wasn't even that good at it. And basically, today's episode is just kind of more of the same. Yes, he was smart in acting when he did, because again, like I said, the whole reason he was able to attack Avengers Tower when he was because Jarvis was offline for a reboot, and likewise, he did act somewhat smart at certain points in the episode, but he still comes across like a smarmy jackass who thinks he's got it all figured out, who thinks he can outmaneuver and outclass the good guys, but at the end of the day, he's just a moron who's using other people's toys. That's literally what happens. The only reason he's able to duke it out with Happy at the end is because he stole the Hulkbuster, and the instant Iron Man enters the fray, he's like, no, that's mine, and takes it back, essentially stripping him of everything. The dude is just as smarmy and dumb as he is in the movies, and again, considering everything else that happens in the movie, it kind of makes sense why they would choose him for this, because he's not that big of a threat, but what he does in the episode does constitute at least enough of a problem that the good guys that are present have to take care of him. So at the very least, it is still something. So at the very least, he's a credible enough villain for the premise. But as a villain himself, he's still dumb, and I thought he's still dumb. Which again works to the episode's benefit, because like I said, the whole episode is not meant to be taken seriously. This episode is just a quirky little fun distraction, as unlike other episodes in What If, this doesn't really have a point of divergence, so to speak, because after all, the episode takes place between the first Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron. They don't give an exact point in time, and while it is clear that this is a branch off from the main Marvel timeline, or the main MCU timeline, because, well, I don't think they ever mentioned that Happy Hogan became a Hulk, and the fact that Tony kind of dodged the question of if there was a cure kind of implies that there isn't one. At the very least, it's still just a quaint little distraction. Fun to watch with some quirky comedy, with some fun characters, some admittedly fun action, some good humor in the whole situation, a nice set, and again, an amusing setup. Overall, just a fun time. Like I said, it's not something you really should be taking seriously. Just sit back, turn off the lights, get some popcorn, and just watch the silly and fun as we see Happy Hogan working to save Christmas. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I hope to see you next week for What If. As well, we take a look at an episode that should have been in Season 1. And that's not a joke. The next episode was actually going to be in Season 1, but they moved it to Season 2. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a good Wednesday. And as always, take care.